Guys, how are you?
Very well. Good evening.
Good evening. Good.
So, Series 2, Episode 2, and we are joined by our guest panellist, our first of Series 2,
Yeah.
Matt Glassup.
No, thanks for having me. Pleasure.
So this is another Porsche friend that we've managed to grab from the south coast, isn't it, basically? So we're going to run out, I think, at some point, are we not?
Oh, we just go around the loop again. I'm sure they'll have more interesting things to say again. Yeah.
So, Matt, you've got a very eclectic history of cars. You do little bits and pieces in the industry as well, do you not?
Yeah, I'm basically a graphic designer, so I do bits and pieces for Tarok's performance brakes, some more kind of niche car cleaning brands. You probably haven't heard of brands like Clean Freaks.
Yeah, we know them.
I'm trying to think, like literally having a...
They'd make a great sponsor.
It would make a great sponsor.
Yeah, Shana Gloss, which is like a new kind of car brand, Dodo Juice, stuff like that. Yeah, but I literally do like advertising and graphic design for anything from jewelry to education to automotive. So it's a real mix of stuff that I do every day. But anytime you can shoehorn a bit of your hobby into what you do is a bit of a bonus. So if someone says, oh, we've got an ad for 1552 wheels, or, we've got a thing for players, sort of thing, that's great because you get to combine the passion and the work. So.
Absolutely.
Do you do stuff for 1552 then?
I've just done a couple of press ads back in the day.
Okay. Yeah. I was just wondering if you'd know the inside line and why they've stopped doing the outlaw wheels.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Absolutely not. No idea.
I feel like everyone wants to know because they're obviously quite loved, and lots of people I think were waiting to buy a set and then they've disappeared.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I don't know what the backstory is. It'd be interesting to find out.
Eminently popular in the USA. You didn't really see too many over here, I think, just due to like logistics with shipping or whatnot. I had a really early set, and it genuinely took about 4 months for them to turn up.
Oh, really?
It was a long old time.
Yeah.
I believe they're doing wheels for the new Bronco, like factory wheels.
Oh, okay.
I think they've got their logo on it somehow. The beaded, whatever, the bead wheels.
I know we diverse, but does anyone else like the new Bronco?
Yes.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
That looks pretty good.
No? Lee's not even seen it.
No, I don't mind it, but I thought, is this leading into today's topic? Or are you leading on to that, or because we have got a couple of topics once we get to obviously Matt and Matt's story today. We'll be talking. Firstly, the theme is ugly as Fuchs, which is
well done.
Make of that what you will.
Yeah. Cars that perhaps started off not particularly loved by its audience, but perhaps have grown to kind of be
grew into their looks.
Absolutely. Well, what sparked that off was the new 4 Series BMW. Came up with the idea a few weeks ago when that came out. It's like, what does that look like? And then thought, well, is that going to get better in time? And that made me think, what cars have actually got better over the years. So I think that'll make a good
Coming
discussion.
of age.
Yeah. And then as we'll get to know, one of the cars in Matt's stable currently is a 964, and obviously Andy with your 993, the car that followed it. Be nice to have a little debate really on 964 versus 993, and I think that's a debate that a lot of people have in their head. I think even you did, Andy, before you bought your 993.
I was open to both, so
excellent.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting topic.
Well, that's the agenda. Oh, before we go anywhere else, Joe, 912, what's the story? Is it still broken?
At this moment in time it is, but parts are en route, so I'm hoping we're hopefully days away from it being back.
It'll be Series 3 by the time that's probably going. So, yeah.
If I can find it, obviously, because I'll just get it in there early. I'm waiting for all the abuse and my lack of sat-nav skills.
Oh, yeah, going back to the weekend. You put yourself in that one, didn't you? You did well. It was a good route in the end. It was nothing like the one that we mapped out, but it was good.
Well, were you leading the convoy?
Yeah.
Stupidly.
I don't know what. I thought, I think it was a couple of weeks before you'd led, and it was just the right pace, and you led it well. I thought Joe should do it on Sunday.
Well, so for those of you that aren't aware, we did a Road to Redline mini road trip on Sunday, followed by a bit of a coffee. We called it Road to West Bay, didn't we? Because the destination was West Bay in West Dorset, which is a little favourite spot of ours on a Sunday morning.
Start at 7 o'clock sharp was the message. And Lee was the last one to turn up. Was it 7:04? I think he just wandered in.
7:02,
Yeah.
if you're going to be pedantic. But
I got there and there was I got there at 6:30.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Really?
I thought just sort of heard a few people around stuff, and
I
there
was
was
still in bed at 6:30.
no way. And there was a guy there and his partner Paul and Debs, and they'd driven all the way down from Oxford, and they were there at 6:30.
Incredible effort.
Yeah,
incredible effort. I
and
mean,
Lee turns up at 7:04.
To be fair, I was out filming. I was doing a little intro for a YouTube video, and you messaged me at 10:07 saying, "Are you up?" And I thought, is he taking the mick? Like,
Well, I thought you were in. Well, and then I got this picture of your car sat on Paul Key, and I'm like, oh, come on, you haven't made that much of a muck up of where we're going from.
Yeah, a slight mess up. Actually, I realised when we'd left and started the actual route to West Bay, I think the three of us were just kind of up front, weren't we? And remember following. Well, I overtook you, Joe. I was kind of in front, and then I realised I hadn't actually got the Kalimoto.
I had no idea where you were going.
Yeah, the route that you'd planned. So I was kind of frantically waving like Joe or somebody past to follow. So that was a mistake, wasn't it?
Yeah. Kalimoto, I think, is great when it works, but yeah, I've had a couple of instances where it just sort of throws its toys out.
It's when you go wrong, you miss where you're meant to be going, where you're mapped out.
It tries to
take you back. Yeah. Because it needs to go through the waypoint.
Right.
I think that's where the issue is.
Got
yeah.
But the whole point, wasn't it, is we'd done the first episode of Series 1 last Tuesday and then just got chatting after, so it would be quite nice to just get the cars out. And
Very impromptu.
with, what was it, 4 days notice to have like 21 cars. We were super happy with that.
That's good effort, isn't it?
And yeah, off the back of the feedback and popularity of it, we will do some more.
Yeah.
Probably other locations in the country, just because we feel it's kind of right to get everybody involved.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, something a bit more central, maybe.
Yeah. So keep an eye on our Instagram page for that, because that's obviously going to be a little bit more up to date than the podcast channel, just by virtue of the fact we seem to organise things last minute. So, but that was Road to West Bay,
which was great.
It was very good. So, onto our guest for the day then, our guest panelist, Matt. Yeah. Well, first of all, let's start with what have you got in the garage currently?
Okay, in the garage currently, I've got a 964 Carrera 2 in forest green metallic, so fairly rare colour in sort of 964 world. I've got a little Audi A1 TDI, which is my commute car, gets me to and from the office with rather good MPGs.
Good choice.
A Volkswagen Caravelle, because I've got 1,000 kids and need to get them all in, and it's pretty much the only vehicle that can fit the entire family in at one go. And I've got a 1973 Gen 2 Camaro, which is a sort of race car, basically a drag car. It's road legal, but I'm kind of in the process of finishing the build on that at the moment.
That's a fairly new acquisition, isn't it?
Yeah, so about 6 months ago we got it, and it's just been painted and just.
So was that an old race car, or was it a road car that you race carred?
It was 100%. I kind of just bought it as a race car.
Yeah.
But it did come with a logbook, so I was thinking I want to get it on the road.
Yeah.
So, like I love a race car, but I also like the thought of doing the school run in something ridiculous. So just generally, people say, is it street legal? And the fact that you can say yes is kind of cool.
Yeah. How the hell did that come about? Did you just wake up at like 4 a.m. one day going, my life is lacking a Camaro? Or...
do you know what? Yeah, at no point did I think I want a Gen 2 Camaro. Like, it just wasn't on my radar. But I'm from a sort of petrol head family, like, sort of to divert slightly, my dad, he's just, everything in life kind of, aside from us kids, comes after cars. So, this story is of when I was younger, like my dad sold the sofa to buy a set of wheels. And my mum had to cobble together some pallets. And
what did she say? What did she do?
She's just supportive. That's what I can say about my
Yeah.
mum.
You must have had the most
Amazing.
understanding mum in the world.
Yeah,
I think that's,
you know, then he'd turn up with a bunch of leather and say, "Can you sew that into some interior for this car or that car?" You know, so
She must love him big stuff.
she was just dragged along into this kind of crazy world where my dad just literally is obsessed with cars and anything generally with a bit of muscle. So to jump forward then to the Camaro, my dad wanted a supercharged big block engine for a car he was building.
Yeah.
And this Camaro local to him turned up with a supercharged big block race car ready to go, and he thought that engine will be perfect. I happened to be there the day that the Camaro
I can
turned up.
sucker my
and I was
son
like,
into buying this.
I want that car. You know, I was like, Dad, I really want that car. I said, if you want the engine, let me buy the car off you. I'll take the roller.
Yeah.
So, and that's, I've driven drag cars before, and I've had kind of drag cars with my name on, but never owned one. So it's my first drag car, which is kind of cool, having had that in my blood kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's nice, and it's such a contrast to the 964. It's hilarious, you know, like they really are chalk and cheese. And some people that know me for the 964 are just, what have you done? Why? You know.
So what engine's gone in that?
I've put a small block Chevy in it, so a 5.7 litre 355, but it's quite a cammy motor, so it should make reasonable horsepower, but it's still fairly tame in terms of drag cars. But I just haven't got the budget with other things going on. It was kind of like, that will get me down the track, and it's kind of a cool car. So,
I think you've missed one car out, haven't you, that you've arrived in today?
Oh, the M3. E92 frozen silver M3, which is actually our company car. So it's a pool car, which is
very good. Yeah, not bad. Got any jobs?
So it's me and my business partner own it, and we wanted a toy that we could take to track days or just have as a little investment, and just enjoy on the odd sunny day. So got the M3 as well, which is great.
it's a pretty cool pool car, isn't it?
Yes, it's a good. One of our guys that works for us, he took his son to prom in it and stuff. So it's done the done the pool car duties.
Brilliant.
It's a real mix. I think it's a mix anyway.
What it is a real eclectic mix. What car have you got the biggest soft spot for?
Well, it's funny. Like, I've toyed, getting into Porsches. Like, my mum had a 944 and then a 968, which kind of first almost ignited my interest in Porsche.
Did you say your mum had those?
Yeah.
She really is a petrol head.
Yeah, my mum's had RS turbos. She's had all sorts of Camaros, Corvettes. Like, she likes long bonnets. She's got a thing for long bonnets. So she's also a lunatic behind the wheel as well. A very little lady. She drives like a madman. But so that kind of got me interested in the Porsches, and I think I ended up actually stealing my mum's 968 to trade and buy my 911. So it was like, it took me a lot to get into my 911, and I think that I've kind of shaped it around sort of almost like my identity. That car is me, and it's put so much time into it and personalization. You look at other cars, you think, I'd really like this car or like that car, but none of them represent me as a person. So in answer to your question, the 964 is 100% my baby.
Is that okay? Well, when did you buy the 964 then?
So
at the right time, I think we.
I could say you can tell by his smile it was pre-2014.
I couldn't afford a 964 now, so I'm owning it, but I probably can't afford it. So I got it in 2011, and at the time I had an A4 TDI that I was commuting. I was working in Christchurch and living in Woking in Surrey, so it's around about an 80-mile drive. And whatever happened, I ended up getting a job more locally in Staines. And Staines massive. And I thought, you know what? Now's the time. If I'm ever going to do it, let's get rid of this 2-litre TDI and get myself a 911. And I think the TDI I went to ePorsche. I don't know if a guy called Rowley Baldwin runs a business called ePorsche that was at the time in Chertsey, next door to GT1.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And he had two 964s for sale. Took the A4 down. He said, "I'll give you 12 for the A4." And that leaves you, the 964 was up for 17 and a half.
Oh my God.
So I was whatever, $6,000 short, $6,500 short. So I had a Mark 1 Golf GTI campaign with a Corrado G60 engine in it. That was my kind of hobby car, if you like. And that was ultimately, I'd got to an age at like 30 and I thought, do I feel like a Mark 1 Golf represents where I am in my life now?
So you've grown out of it a little bit.
Yeah, and I love the car to bits, and I probably still would have one now. But as my only kind of outlet for my hobby, did a Mark 1 Golf identify who I was? And I felt, no, I really wanted that next step up. So I thought, if I break the Mark 1, I can get the money. And as an interim, Mum said, "Oh, well, if you want, you can just part the 968." And so I nicked that, gave him the two cars, just drove them both down there and walked away with the forest green. He had two 964s for sale, a red one and a green one. And initially I thought a green 911, I just wasn't really feeling it. Like I'd looked online and it had like graphite Boxster wheels. Okay. So 17-inch twisty Boxster wheels in graphite. And I've got to be honest, it didn't look good. Yeah. But when I saw it in the flesh, it's got a really unusual colour interior that I don't think is linen, because it's got a hint of green to it. I honestly can't say I've ever seen a colour with an interior the same colour. Yeah. And I saw this car in the flesh and I was like, I've got to have it. I've got to have the green one, 100%. And
it's a good choice.
Yeah. So I took those two cars down, drove away. I took a really camp picture of me with my keys, looking happy with my first and only 911, and I used that car daily. So I bought it 85k on the clock, for £17,500. Wow! And I did 15,000 miles in the first year.
Good effort.
Drove it everywhere. I would go 4 up in it. Yeah, I was like, I've got a 911, let's go to Mackey's, let's go, let's go to cinema, let's just do whatever. And we'd all just pile in it like absolute Herberts. And sat there eating a double cheeseburger, looking at it going, this is real. It was great. Brilliant. And it kind of, the value started to creep up, like not long after having it. And then I thought, I can't daily this anymore. Like this is, it's getting a little bit silly to do that.
How good was it when you bought it?
It was great. I mean, it wanted for nothing, really.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, the interior had been colonised instead of retrimmed, so it kind of looked better than it was. Yeah. But other than that, it was kind of just a tidy example. So I could just get in it and drive it. And I kid you not, I spent nothing on it for 2 years. I just drove it.
You must have changed the wheels.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in terms of replacement parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just, nothing happened. I just drove it like a car, basically. I didn't think of it as anything different.
You just didn't miss a beat?
No, that car, 100%, was absolutely at its best when used every day.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Like they all are.
Yeah.
To be honest.
It was absolutely faultless. And I went everywhere. Like I say, I put the miles on it. There wasn't all short journeys. I was up and down the M3, I was all over the place in it and just really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
What goes through your mind then, Matt, when the car's appreciating how it did and how it has done? Because surely one after you's thinking, yeah, absolutely great. What an investment, if I flip this now, tax free, blah, blah, blah. But then also, you're saying you bought the car to drive and you said you took it off the road, or in terms of using it every day.
Yeah.
That's sad, isn't it? Because it's not what you bought the car for.
It is. And at the time, all I could afford was my granddad gave me a Citroen Xantia estate in silver with he'd crashed it and decided to beat the dent out with a hammer himself. So it's kind of like reverse dent kind of thing going on. and a hole in the rear bumper that, because it was silver, he put like silver duct tape on. Nice. So I was the boy smoking around stains in my air suspension Xantia, just thinking,
I had one as well.
What am I doing here? Because I've got a car that I love that I can't use, and I look like an absolute reprobate driving around in this Citroen. I just
Brilliant.
I quite like the Xantia though. Did you?
Brilliant, absolutely superb on fuel, and you could get everything you wanted in the back of it, but it was just an embarrassment.
Oh, it was.
I'd go to like a client meeting or something, and it was just me turning up in this absolute like Millennium Falcon looking car. My seniors at work at the time would just look at me like, what is he doing?
What is he doing? Yeah. So the Xantia air suspension, you can drop that right down. Did that have any sort of effects on your 964 wants? Because your car's pretty slammed, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think that's just the Volkswagen scene. I built my first kind of show car, if you want, at 15. So again, growing up in a petrol-head family, I just always knew, right, I want a car that's going to be crazy out of the blocks. So I bought a Mark 1 Golf 1.1 at 15 and proceeded to modify it to within an inch of its life. So we used transit hinges and we hung the doors suicide.
Okay.
We shaved the door handles and put solenoids in the back of the side repeaters. So you basically push the side repeater in and it popped the door open. And then I was like, that still needs to be more different. So we put Skoda hinges on the bonnet, had a side opening bonnet, and then put like 17-inch wheels on it, which at the time was revolutionary. Yeah. Which randomly I bought at a car boot sale for £100. A set of they must have been stolen. It's the only way to explain it. But
25 quid a car.
Yeah, it was still a car kind of built on a shoestring, but it was built to a level. Like my mum retrimmed the interior. It was like Alcantara and leather, and she did the interior for me. Me and my dad fitted the suspension, and a guy down in Somerset painted the car for like next to no money. Yeah. And it got featured in the Golf magazine when I was 16, and I couldn't even drive it. Like my dad had to take it to Chobham test track. And drove it round for me. And then I had to rely on mates that were a bit older than me to actually drive it to shows. So
that's an awesome story.
Yeah, that kind of just, that's my kind of background in terms of the VW scene and just getting into low cars.
Do you think those days have gone where people, buy what's a cheap base car and actually put the time and the effort in to make it their own? I don't know if it's young people aren't interested or cars now aren't.
I think insurance has wiped all of that out. Because you remember, insurance from like my first car and people after, you've got an 800 quid car, it's $3,000 for the year to insure. And then that's on a stock car. And obviously everybody says they've got a stock car, even though like the springs chopped and all sorts, and I just think that's just probably put people off.
I think it's that, but I think it's also a real cost thing now. Like I remember,
stuff didn't used to be that expensive, I'm
sure.
It
really wasn't. Like, I mean, again, drop springs, £60, cut a couple of coils off when they went. The wheels, I said, for £100. The material bought to trim the seats. It was all just like second hand. I bought a clipper kit off of a cabriolet for 350 quid and fitted that. And the car was all done out with a 1.1 litre engine. So it was all about the look and it was built for not a lot of money. I just don't think you can do that now. If you want a car painted,
everything's thousands now.
Yeah, you can't get it done.
I think that was the thing with the VW scene, and your story kind of resonates because it was you'd spend bits and pieces here and there on making the very best car you can on a budget, and then with the VW indoor scene when I was kind of involved with it is like players when that started coming around year after year, people would be spending like properly, £10,000 on like a Mark IV Golf with, it had to have air suspension or it had to.
There's some big checkbook cars, wasn't there? It sort of went from it suddenly transitioned into being
big paint jobs and whatnot.
I think there's two elements to that. One is that all the owners, began to reach that point in their life where they could earn a decent salary. Because back when we were modding the cars, so this would have been like late 90s, like 98, something like that. The cars, we were all relatively young. Even the people that were older at the time are now still in their sort of 50s max, So all of a sudden, everyone comes of age. They're earning a bit more money. So everyone just starts going crazy. And then there's finance is the other thing. So 0% finance just changed the game in terms of wheels and suspension because people buy a £5,000 set of wheels and £5,000 worth of airlift and just smack it on 0%. And
that's it. The kids can go and buy an M2 competition now on a few £100 a month, can't they, on leasing it?
I think back then, isn't it? Like exactly that, isn't it? People literally, they could build their car on their credit card, and you'd hear these stories we would drop, what seemed mega at the time, 20 grand on something stupid, and like you said, the whole thing was just borrowed and paying it back for the rest of their life. But
yeah, that's a good point, because then also, I mean, you just had the BMW 1 Series, which was like a game changer in kind of terms of prestige brands building smaller cars. And obviously, like Mercedes do it now and whatnot. Whereas back in the day, it was your choice as a first-time driver, wasn't it? It was a Polo or a Corsa or a Punto, and that was kind of it, wasn't it? You know.
Also, how much? I mean, if you think about it, the actual manufacturers now, they've kind of caught up in a way, and the cars that are coming out of the factory are so much better.
Definitely.
They've got big wheels, I don't say better, but they look more the part. Yeah. They've got bigger wheels, low profile tyres, a few wingy bits.
I think they've all jumped on giving it a sort of sporty range without the big engine, haven't they?
Yeah.
A bit like the S-Line Audis and it's not was it M Sport BMW? Yeah. So it's like all show no go type stuff.
Yeah.
So there's less of a need for it. Whereas back then you were literally taking off 13 or 15 inch wheels and changing it up completely when that wasn't an option from factory.
Do you think the culture's disappeared a bit though? Yeah, I don't know if there's the same appetite for people to be making things their own anymore.
Yeah, I do. And again, I think insurance has ruined it. I think it does as a youngster, because to my mind that scene is for younger people, and insurance companies just didn't want kids messing around with cars.
I think we've all just grown up and we're still mucking around with more expensive stuff. It's just like we're a sort of generation that we're so much into cars, and
I think there's probably still a minority out there still modding up the latest Golf GTI, whatever it is, and then other people have gone, actually I'm going to take the more sensible side step and step into Porsche or something for the similar money.
Well, that's what you shows like the Max Power show, Died a Death, all those magazines are sort of long gone. But then you look at Players show and what they're doing now, it's still really busy.
Is it?
And there are a lot of young people.
I went last year,
but with big budgets though, building cars. But it's just a smaller, I guess a smaller deal. It's less commercial, probably a bit more niche.
Yeah, I went to the Players last year at Goodwood.
Yeah,
I was at the Classic.
Okay, yeah,
Players Classic, and I was amazed at how many younger people there were actually looking back on it.
Yeah,
there was, it wasn't just like
It's always quite heartening to see like there's a young guy that's got like a Hillman Imp absolutely slammed on beautiful wheels, and he's painted it himself, and then you see a guy with a frog-eyed Sprite that's got airlift on it, or there is some diversity out there, and there's some people building crazy cars, but it's just few and far between now.
That's good. I don't think Players Classic's not going on this year, is it?
No,
it's been cancelled.
They've just written it off. But kind of a long way around a bit. Yeah, I like low cars. And as soon as the first mod I bought for my car was KW suspension, it was literally the first thing I bought. So
probably within the first few hours, wasn't it?
Definitely within the first week.
Yeah,
I was on the phone and those KWs arrived. And
So how far down is your car?
I have no idea, as low as it goes, and then it wouldn't go low enough. So I spoke to my mate Rich Payne and ordered up some custom springs so that it could actually, go lower, basically.
So Rich has got the Ruby Stone
964. Yeah, and Rich bought. So there were two friends of mine, Rich and Darren, and they both bought 964s probably about 2 years before I did.
Yeah,
and they pretty much, they. In my mind, when I saw their cars, I was like, that is the pinnacle of my taste and what we do in terms of car shows. And it was like a really nice crossover because you could take it to a VW show and it was okay.
Yes, accepted and
100%. Yeah, so I got to hang out with my friends still, but get into a Porsche.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I think we've all started off VW around this table.
Yeah, bizarrely.
Was the first thing, and we've progressed.
There's some natural progression there, isn't there? Lots of people in that scene seem to end up in a Porsche one way or another.
And I see it now, even guys that I've known for years, they're selling their cars and all of a sudden they've got a 997 or a 991, and I'm like, he's made the change. And, they're all coming up.
Jay has, isn't he?
Yeah, Jay. Yeah, he's just got a 964 as well. Yeah. I mean, there's a good I reckon sort of 8 to 10 of my friends that have got 964s or 993s that did have modified Golfs, basically.
So where we were talking about the values earlier on, how do you feel then where the values have shot up to where they are currently? And not only do you own one, so you've taken it off the road or reduced your miles for that reason, but you're modifying it, which is kind of frowned upon in some quarters, isn't it? You know, how does that sit with you?
Well, I always take my hat off to people that go crazy and modify it to within an inch of its life. I've probably not had the budget to do it, and I've also been a little bit more cautious for that reason. So everything on my car is completely reversible, and like it's got, so the main upgrades on my car, it's got the Porsche E to Beta split rims 18s, and they've been widened with stainless steel dishes and stainless steel bolts. So it's quite an aggressive fitment. They look quite wide on the car.
Yeah. And
I run a stretch tyre, but still quite a wide tyre. So I've got 225s on the front, which are stretched. And I've got Tarox brakes, 10-pot brakes on the front and 6s on the back. And there's a big brake kit, completely fills the wheels.
Yeah.
You see nothing.
10-pot front calipers.
Yeah.
Jesus.
That's insane.
They're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful.
I remember the first time I saw your car was at Luft.
Oh yeah.
And it was parked by the big door for one of the hangars.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was pissing down with rain. Obviously that day it was just absolutely shafting it down, but it was just sat there with the wheels. I think at the time were quite a bit golder than they are now.
Yeah.
It was like popping.
Yeah. At the time, those wheels were, they were refinished by Rotiform in California.
Yeah.
And they did like a brushed finish with like a gold clear coat, which looked fantastic in the sun, but they look like vomit in the shade. So it's...
I don't know. They look good. But I think they look better now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, it's got the wheels, the brakes, the KW suspension, DCAT, polybushed steering wheel, like a renowned steering wheel, RS ducts, and that's about it. So everything that's on that car is a kind of bolt on, really.
Yeah.
It's got a duck tail, again, bolt on. I've kept the original.
Yeah.
So there's nothing on it that's reversible, and so I've always thought I can sell it as it is, or I can just put it back to standard.
Yeah.
The brakes were a bit of a pain to put back to standard, to be honest, because they were, the ones that came off were a bit tatty, so I'd have to buy new brakes to change them back.
I'm sure somebody wouldn't complain if you left those on, surely.
Well, no, I mean,
Imagine,
It must stop well, surely.
Oh, it stops fantastic, but the pedal feels really nice.
Yeah.
But it is a very expensive kit.
Yeah.
And I was very lucky that Tarox, I worked with Tarox, and they really looked after me on the kit. So, but it's not something I would like to have to buy. But if you've got all the money and you're of that, you think no expense spared, then it's the brakes to have, because they are literally stunning.
Yeah. They've used your car a few times, haven't they, for show stands and stuff like that?
Yeah. It's a nice little payment back for what they did for me. I had to Rich Payne, my mate who works for Porsche, he had to get me like a rear arm off of a 911 and like all sorts of parts we had to ship to Italy to the factory for them to make them for my car, because they, generally speaking, they don't do a huge amount of Porsche. So they sell quite a lot of Audi stuff and VAG and Ford. And
I think randomly they do a lot of Fiat Ibarth kits, don't they?
Yeah, a lot of Italian stuff again, because they're an Italian brand. But they don't do a huge amount for Porsche. So it was kind of like, let's get this kit made and let's see how it goes. But
so is that now a commercial kit you can buy off the shelf because they've done the work? Or?
Yeah, you can buy it now. But I think just the cost is quite prohibitive. Really. So, but that said, like in terms of like replacement discs and stuff, they're actually cheaper than OE a lot of the time. So if you've got an R8 and you need new discs, you can go to Tarox and pay less than the main dealer and get a better product. So it's, but then you want to go kit, it's just going to cost you enough.
So is your car, do you look at it as a keeper, or do you look at that as that's a period of sort of time that will expire?
Yeah, I guess both depending on what side of the bed I get out of. Like, so I'm always thinking I really want a 997 GT3, like to have that GT3 badge on a car. And that's like, for me, like the look of it and everything else, like that's almost like my dream car.
Okay.
But then I think, could I really let go of an air-cooled 964, which is in dwindling numbers, and get into a GT3, which arguably, I don't know in 15 years' time which is going to be the more valuable. I don't know. And I think, would I be making a mistake? My dad sold a Shelby GT500 Mustang for £8,000, which is now, I mean, that car books 100 to 120 depending on conditions, you know. And he just said at the time he just needed the money, and it went. And I always think about that with the Porsche. I mean, is it a good thing to, you know, to get out of it? You just don't know, do you? You just got to do what feels right at the time.
I think if you're in an older car generally, I think it's over a longer period of time. If you're looking long term, it's only going to appreciate. It's there. Like I said, it is a dwindling numbers. There's a lot of them that are in disrepair, that aren't being looked after. A lot of them are being saved, but I think it is one of those things, isn't it? They're not suddenly going to find a load more 964s from anywhere. No. And good ones are in short supply.
Yeah, but then there's a lot of people that put their cars up for sale right now, and they just don't sell. They think they're worth I think they're worth all the money, and realistically, no one wants to buy them at that.
I think the whole sort of classic market's stalled, isn't it? I mean, that's lots of people have said that's kind of it was riding a high, and it's kind of had a bit of a hiccup. So it'll all come back, I'm sure. I
mean, what's great about my car is I still do enjoy it. I mean, it's not my daily anymore, but I took it to Austria last year. I drive it regularly. I do the school run with it. I'll drive it to work. I probably put 3,000 a year on it. So it's still used, and it's not. I leave it outside. I mean, I do put it in the garage, but I if I get home, I'll just leave it outside and put it away the following day. I'm not precious about it. It's a car.
Your trip, that was Worthesea, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What was that? How was that?
Yeah, really good fun. Yeah, I had again, my mate had his Rich had his Ruby Stone 964. My other mate Pete had his 997. I think it's I'm not too hot on the 997s, to be honest, but it's the wide. I think it's a C4, so it's wider. Would that be right?
Yeah, C4, C4S or GTS, so it's got centre locks.
No. So it must be it's just a C4, but it's kind of wide body. So it looked pretty cool. And so it's just us in our 911s and just had a blast out there. And
I've always wanted to do the Worthesea, but never got there.
It's fantastic. I mean, we did the Gummond Museum.
Oh yeah.
We went to the Porsche Museum as well.
It's funny, the Gummond Museum, isn't it? Tiny little place.
Brilliant. And they put a post up on their Instagram of my car after I visited.
Excellent.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. I felt pretty chuffed at that.
Yeah, it's such a cute little museum.
It just feels really authentic there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You're just walking around the place, just, it's basically a glorified barn.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
they said, have you been there?
No, I've not.
It literally is an old farm building, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's still got all of the sort of barns in Germany have got a ramp out the front to sort of, I don't know if they put the cows up the top or machinery, but it's got the ramp there.
Well, I think, isn't that where he made the cars and just pushed them down out of the...
No, that's not. It's just the actual place is further down the road.
Right, okay.
I think it's about a mile or so away from the little museum.
Oh, yeah.
Just like a little wooden shed. It was like a wood where they made, cut trees down and stuff like that. It was just some little wooden shed.
It's well worth it's worth a visit for the fact that how underwhelming it is in a way. Yeah. Like it is like going to some sort of bizarre, like little, just sort of back street garage in a way. Weird, but they've just got really cool stuff in there and a tiny little shop like that's you could swing a cat in. And that's it.
So what was Worthesea like? The actual event? Give us a quick run.
I mean, if you're thinking about going to a car event abroad, to driving to one, I can't think of a bigger event. I think it is, I could be wrong, the biggest car gathering or the biggest single make car gathering in the world and that would be like Volkswagens. But it's an all makes thing. I mean, there's everything there from D Tomassos, Mercedes, Ferraris, loads of V-dubs, obviously, Audis, anything. If it's cool, then it's there. And they've all got, BBS E88s absolutely slammed,
Everything's modified.
Everything, yeah. And the Europeans know how to do it properly. I mean, there's some absolutely stunning. I mean, there was a Tesla Model S on air ride and in like a Volt green wrap with splits on it and stuff. And I've never seen anything like that in the UK. And there's G wagons and Lambos and just anything and everything, and everyone's just cruising around the lake, having ice creams, having speedboat rides, and just having a good time. So I couldn't recommend it enough. But you don't want to go to the actual event because weirdly the event's got so big that it's kind of spilled out in that people go like 2 weeks before, right? And that's almost like the unofficial event.
Okay.
It's a strange old affair, but the actual event is more of a kind of nightmare, really. It's just people shouting "Gummy" and doing crazy burnouts in the street and wearing a full face paint and just getting absolutely rat-arsed.
So did you do the before and the during, or which bit?
This with the Porsche, I did the before. But many years ago, I went to the actual event, which is just insane to see because of the volume of cars. It's bumper to bumper traffic for miles. And the only way I can describe it is, imagine if they just shut down Bournemouth and said, we're going to have a car show, but you can park anywhere. Literally anywhere and everywhere. Like there's people's, like they open up their gates and cars just park in driveways and like in gardens, and they're on every bit of curb, every bit of road. It's just
amazing.
Mental.
How do the locals park?
I think it's just revenue for them. For them, it's all about the money. It's got to be, because there's no way you'd put up with it otherwise.
It's built over the years, and they're used to it. And
So I mean, for anyone that's not heard of Worthersea, it's actually Worthersea GTI Treffen. And like give it a goog and see what it's all about. It's pretty mad, and you do get some beautiful Porsches there as well. And actually, part of the reason again I built my cars because I saw a white 964 there on E2 Beta twists back in like 2010, and I was like, that's as good as it gets.
So have you got any trips planned, or did you have any trips planned before the current situation?
Did you is probably the question.
No, not really actually. So I literally had nothing booked, which was kind of a result. But next year is the anniversary for Worthersea, so the boys are going, so I've just got to swing my pass with the missus to say that I'm allowed to go.
Let's start working on that one then.
Ask Andy about that one.
Get a few tips.
So you were talking about your 964 and some big bills. What sort of
how painful has it been?
Well, it's not been too bad. Under the whole kind of ownership experience, it's not been bad at all. I've had it maintained by a friend who's an independent, so it's not cost me a lot to kind of service it.
There's a butt on that.
But it got to a point where I'd probably not really given it much love for quite some time, and it's probably about 2 years ago, I think it was. I couldn't get the engine cover open, and I was like, oh, that's a bit of a pain. And I could hear a bit of noise from the steering rack. I thought it needs power steering fluid. So either way, I couldn't get it open. The closest garage was GT1 in Chertsey, so I took it down there, and I said, look, guys, I've just put this out there now. I haven't got a lot of money at the moment. Could you just get the engine lid open and then just tell me what you find? So they called me up a couple of days later, got the engine lid open. It's just the cable, 37 quid or something. However, you've got power steering line split behind the engine. So it's, leaking power steering fluid. So you're going to need to get that done. I was like, okay. So to do that, we've got to take the engine out. I was like, okay. So, and as happens, these things just
snowball.
And so it had new power steering lines, new fuel lines, every oil pipe from the engine to the cooler, and even the tank came out and got welded because it was porous. They found some rust on the chassis leg, on the sort of left hand side, just behind the engine. The list, it was like 8 pages of A4 or something.
Shit.
And
all for a cable.
including all the parts. It was, and every time they phoned me, I literally got like a bit of a sweaty forehead and like a bit of mild panic. But after $5,000, it was like, oh, that's bad. And then sort of 6 and 7, 8.
Once you're in.
Then I was just sort of found it quite funny every time the phone rang. And I think all told, with all the parts, it was around about 12,500 that it cost me, which is, again, when you look at what I purchased the car for, like,
so
mind
when
bending.
I asked you earlier how good, bad, or otherwise it was when you bought it,
well, in fairness, it probably was not that bad when I bought it, but that was 7-8 years later.
And that's good use.
I'd replaced things like the brake lines. I'd redone all the front end about 6 months prior, put all the poly bushes in, and knew everything on the steering side was all new apart from the rack. And so for me, I was just like, well, I'm there now. It's just do it, and got the credit card out and just still paying it off now, but it's done. And my car, it's a funny one because it's done 115,000 miles. It's not had an engine rebuild. They said it doesn't need an engine rebuild, and it's not had a full repaint. So it's kind of a car that if I was to advertise, I'd imagine a lot of people would say, oh, it needs an engine rebuild. You'd want to paint it to get all the money for it. It doesn't really need those things. So it's kind of just a usable car with a whole load of new bits on it, but not those big ticket items.
I actually think, contrary to that, the fact that it's on original paint will appeal to a lot of people. And the fact that you've got all the vital things kind of renewed underneath I think speaks volumes. The engine thing,
I think having its original engine is actually more important. And the fact that in the future, if someone wants to rebuild it to satisfy themselves, and fine. But I think having like you said, an original paint, matching numbers, original engine, there's something to be said for that.
The compression test on it or anything?
No, I mean, the engine performs great. I mean, it gets spanked fairly regularly. They did RS clutch and flywheel when it was in at GT1. And it does leak oil. There's no doubt about it. It's pretty wet under there at times, but it doesn't seem to use a lot of oil. So in between services, I'm not really topping it up. So it's kind of more aesthetic than anything else. So it's just one of those things, really. I think, like, I said to them, should I rebuild the engine? And they were like, well, you could do the top end if you wanted to, but then the bottom end will probably not like it because you're only doing half a job. And then really the only reason to do a full rebuild is just to tick a box. It's not going to benefit you in any way.
Wait till you really need it.
100%. So I've always been like, okay, one day I will get to that. And when I get to it, hopefully I can do an upgrade along the way. So I can do some throttle bodies or do something kind of interesting.
That's a big ticket. I mean, there's no cheap way to rebuild a Porsche engine, unfortunately. So it's one of them. You've got to write the check as well. So.
Yeah. It's just, I look at it as like, well, I own the car now. So, that's, while it'll probably represent a lot of money down the line, that'll be a nice thing to do when I get there.
Without doubt. I think we all kind of commend you for sticking to your guns and where the value of the car has gone up. You kept it and enjoyed it, but also made it your own as well. I think that takes like a lot of balls to do that, to be honest. So
it's good fun. I would say, can't knock it.
It's interesting. You were saying earlier, I think off air, talking about 993s versus 964s, and having a little discussion about that, and why did I choose what I went for? Now I decided to go 993 because I thought that 964s had got down to the sort of lower value, and that it was going to be more expensive to keep it. So it had gone through maybe a few years where it was only worth 10 grand, and had been probably not as well looked after as it should be.
It was down with the 996, wasn't it?
That's it, and that the car wouldn't be maintained, and there'd be much more stuff to do on it. And I think my car has sort of shown that is true, in that mine's always been worth a little bit more than the 964, and my particular car's been very well looked after, but I think most 993s have.
Are you selling your car or something?
No.
It sounds like a sales pitch, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You are right though. 993s, they've always kept a bubble about them, mainly because they're the last air-cooled car.
Yeah.
So they have been, above where 964s went low. And as you say, there might be people that have struggled to get into them.
Yeah. So it's quite interesting what Matt was saying about, you've got those things that have gone on yours.
Yeah.
Where it went through that period of...
I always look at it like, it cost me quite a lot of money at that one moment in time, but over the ownership of the car. So, in terms
it costs you more to service a Golf yearly and look after
100%. Like, when I look at even what I pay on warranty payments for the BMW or something like that, and over the 10 years I've owned the 964, it's really been quite kind to me, to be honest. Yeah. It was just, a bit of bad luck probably. But it's funny what you say about 993s being last to the air-cooled. Like a great example of, I think, again, why values are probably quite solid. There's a lady that I work with, and she had 911s for years. So she had, an 80s 911, 964 after that. And then she bought a 993 Cabriolet.
Yeah.
And then when they brought out the 996, she was like, I'm not going water-cooled. So I will this is the last car I will ever own. And she basically, she's still got it. Yeah. She literally just says she outright refuses to go water cooled, and she just drives it, every day. And that's her only car now. She can't get a newer air cooled Porsche. So that's the one she's going to have, and it's just quite funny.
That's dedication. That is.
Yeah. It's a kind of dogmatic air cooled owner outlook, and she's a lady in accounts. She's not like a diehard Porsche geek or anything, but she's got her principles and she'll stand by.
Excellent.
It's fair play, because the 993, as we've kind of said before, has this kind of kudos attached to it in being last of the air cooled, but there's no getting away from it. I mean, where 964 values have come from to where they are now, and they just don't look like slowing down ever, do they? And it's kind of, for years, specialists in the industry have always said the 993 is going to have its day. It's going to have its day, but it's kind of still not had it in terms of, like, if you go back to 2012, values of them then to now versus 964 them to now, percentage wise. Do you? I mean, obviously you're banking on it.
No, I'd like the car for what it is, not for what its value.
Was Matt, when you were looking, was 964 the only one on the list, or were you toying with 993 or otherwise?
Can I sort of diss a 993 right now? Like,
That's why I don't like the table.
I don't like the front
I'll just put this out there. I do love 993s, but objectively, when I look at the cars, I think the 993 looks a bit softer. Yeah, for me, it's like a bar of soap. It's sort of like goes back under itself. Yeah. Whereas a 964,
it's like the jelly version of 911.
Yeah. Where the 964 is just those bumpers, those Mark II Golf style bumpers, just sort of give it that very hard edge. And I just think it looks tougher. I just generally think the 964 looks a little bit more aggressive when it's low. That said,
and it's got the classic lights on the front.
Yeah. So that, I do love a 993, and if someone say to me what's I think the most beautiful air-cooled Porsche, I'd probably say 993 Turbo S. Like, just the thing just looks absolutely nuts, but it's got all the wings and all the bits and pieces on it. But as a base car, I think the 964 is just a bit sharper.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's just my personal take on it. Really,
it looks almost like two different. Well, not two different people. It looks like the 993 is two different cars, where the front is so soft. But actually, I think conversely, the rear end of the 993 is one of the best
100%.
generation of 911 R's out there. It's weird, but then the turbo and the RS of the 993, where they've got that revised bumper, it's kind of deeper, isn't it? It pulls it to the floor more visually, and it kind of gets that right level of aggression.
Yeah,
I'm looking to replace my corners on the front bumpers for something a bit more edgy, because I just can't get on with that round sort of look, and I really dislike the 993 headlights.
Do you really? Why is that then?
I just find them a bit wishy-washy and slip back a little bit. There's
959 inspired.
Just a bit.
Really?
Yeah. And that's coming from a 993 owner. But there's a couple of companies designing new headlights 4 993s at the moment. So hoping that something there might appeal with it.
How would they redesign? Like what element of it are they redesigning?
So there's a couple of companies that make headlights for 964s and G bodies, and they're more modern. They've got LED.
So you're like an upright
projector
version of what you
lights.
got. Is it sort of a more upright version of what's there?
the angle of the angle.
Yeah, I think. Hoping that they might put a bit more angle on it. Yeah, we'll see. See what they look like.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
I'm pretty boring. Like I see people upgrading their headlights in the 964s, moaning about how bright they are and blah blah blah. But I just like an OE looking headlight in a 964.
Yeah.
I just look at the others and they're just not for me.
Yeah, that's bling and
I
modern
totally
LED
get
stuff's
it,
odd, yeah.
but it's just not my personal thing. I like seeing that sort of hella looking, like typical pattern glass. Yeah, and it just makes you laugh when you put the headlights on because it just doesn't do anything. It lights up the clocks so you can at least see how fast you're going.
They're not where you're going. Yeah. Joe, 964, 993.
Oh, 964 for me, I'm afraid.
Yeah, how come?
I can appreciate a 993 as with most of them, just not for me. I'm actually not a fan of the rear of a 993. I know lots of people are the opposite. The sort of lines of the wings and stuff, I don't know, mess my head a bit. I just like, and I like what I like.
yeah.
So yeah, sorry.
I'd go wide body 964. I think everybody would, wouldn't they? It's just the look of that is just. Yeah.
Well, I think on that note, that would lead us quite nicely onto the next topic on today's agenda, which is ugly as Fuchs, we've called it.
Yeah.
if we can.
Turned it down.
Yeah, so it kind of really rides on the theme of cars that when they first came out, people weren't too sure about, but turned out to be quite popular.
So yeah, what inspired this was the new BMW 4 Series and its gopping grille, and I was thinking, is that going to become good? Are we going to get used to it, and are we going to actually like the look of that car? And what other cars have been like that? So I always look at, it always seems to be new Japanese cars. When they first come out, you look at them and you're like, wow, that's bloody amazing. And then within 6 months, the sort of edge has turned off of it. And you're like, I'm not so sure about that line. But then German cars always seem to be, when they first come out. But then they mature with age.
Sorry. I'm just imagining anybody listening back to this podcast in the last 5 minutes has been, meh.
Is that what I've been doing?
Yeah, Japanese cars are and German cars are meh.
So yeah, what cars do that for you?
I think you should go first, Andy.
Should I?
I reckon you've obviously got a few in mind, so I reckon give us a quick rundown and we'll tell you what we think.
Well, if we go to Matt, it was a 964. When they were new, they were obviously controversial, and nobody really liked them, and they were like that for a long time. But I think over the years, people have warmed to them because lots of people have been modifying them and making them look right. So most 964s now look right. They've been made to look right by putting the right wheels on. I mean, you take any 964, take off those design 90s and put some Cup 1 wheels, and it's
Take
a
the
different
flag
car.
gears off
It's an
as
easy
well.
car to do a dramatic transformation with a couple of bolt-on bits.
Yeah.
What I would say to that is, for me, like I kind of missed I wasn't of the age where I even noticed a new 964. Like when I was growing up, it was all about 993s kind of thing. So I never really thought of the 964 as anything like that. But I've definitely, for me, the 996 is the car that's come of age, and just recently, like over the last sort of 5 years, a C4S for me. And again, we were talking about the back end of a 993. Like, does it get better than the back end of a C4S? Like that reflector and just,
I think Lee's going to do things.
if I see,
No,
if I see one
obviously.
like trundle by, I'm like, yes, I just love it. And I never thought I'd want a 996, but I definitely want one more now than I ever have.
Yeah.
But the 964 has trod this same path. It's almost trailblazing it for the 996. If you 10 years ago, if you were entry level kind of 911 money, it was 996, 964, maybe a ropey SC or something. But I mean, the 964 has just ridden the absolute crest of a wave, isn't it? It's just kind of...
Do you think that might be a little bit Singer inspired?
Oh, without a doubt, because people have realised the potential of them. Yeah, but then also it's a thing that when the car came out, as I was saying in the break, you know, people were like ABS and power steering and whatnot on a 964, and the first 911 with four-wheel drive. I think that was the big thing with the 964, because the C4 actually came out, I think it was a year before the C2.
Yeah, there's not that many C2s about, actually.
You know, and it got absolutely hammered for it. And then even as the years have gone on, sort of like end of the 90s, early noughties, people were still saying it was too modern.
Yeah.
For a classic. But now I just think by kind of, you know, natural ascension and evolution, people have grown up and gone, actually... Yeah, I remember seeing that when I was younger, and all of a sudden, you know, a car with ABS, you know, I mean, in this day and age, you know, compared to like, the tech that cars are dripping with these days. I mean, that isn't, and now people look at it and go, that is the perfect blend of kind of classic car with some modern safety systems, you know?
Yeah.
So I think the 964 absolutely epitomises the whole idea of a car that kind of starts off on the wrong foot, but just completely, grows into something quite special.
Yeah. Well, I think the 996, lots of people are starting to modify them and get them. I mean, you look at your little Irish, how that looks on the road now from how it looked a few months ago. Yeah. It looks like a totally different car. And when it's going along the road, it just...
I think because when you live with it every day, you don't see the dramaticness of the change. Because I think other people have seen that car, it go from one extreme to the other, and it's...
I'm just going. I've just thoughts come into my head when it was white, and it was sat outside Bournemouth Porsche, and it was like, who the fuck's bought that?
Yeah,
the state of that.
Honestly, to be honest, that car probably epitomises again the 996 because it was an absolute lemon. But then they all are really, because they were all sitting around sort of 10 grand. Questionable service histories. The build quality on them's bad anyway. The engine's made out of chocolate. But kind of bizarrely, despite all of that, I think people have replenished and reinvested in the stock, so the cars are better, the problems have been sorted, and thankfully for people, it's still kind of an entry-level car. So there probably is quite a lot to like about the car these days.
Yeah. They've turned that corner, though, from being quite almost hated. I mean, it's they were like the outcast, weren't they?
Yeah,
not that long ago.
Yeah, people spitting vitriol at the car.
Yeah, but they've just turned that corner completely, haven't they?
Yeah,
I definitely uttered the words like I hate the headlights, and now I look at them and I think, they're the same headlights as a GT1 or whatever. And I really like them now. They've definitely grown on me.
But the 911 has a history of kind of doing that, as we said in the break, the G series, when that first came out, not that any of us know, I don't think we went around at the time, but reliably informed that those impact bumpers just spoilt the purity of the look of the shape, obviously like that your 912 has, Joe, and the early 911s, and it took a while for people to come around to that. Whereas now, I mean, if you think of like a Guards Red 3.2 Carrera with whale tail, that's like the quintessential 80s 911, isn't it?
That's the pin-up poster car.
It really is. And then again, 991 with the electric assisted steering. It's the wheelbase growing by 100 mil. It's a lot bigger proportions, perceptively. Rear axle steering, etc.
And that was hailed as the death of the 911, wasn't it?
Just without a doubt. Whereas now, I mean, as we've discovered, sales wise, 1 in 5 911s is a 991. It's an absolute roaring sales success.
Can't argue with that, can you?
No. So the 911 has a history of doing it. I mean, we're all slating 992s and whatnot for like, I don't know.
I'm warming. To the looks
really?
Yeah, okay. Definitely.
Not the sound though, surely.
Well, I've not enough experience of one for the sound, so
that's a bad one. But then, like I say, in 20 years' time, we'll be doing we'll be driving them, won't we?
Yeah, absolutely. So what other car we've talked a bit about Porsche, 964s and so forth. What other sort of car manufacturers do you think?
We don't know any others, do we?
Oh, that's true. What else is you think back? So something that I thought about was all the Bangle design BMWs. So the Z4 when that came out, and the 5 Series at that time, the 7 Series, all very angular and big hate. I really wasn't that keen on them. And the 1 Series BMW, I mean, we all looked at that and went, what the hell? But now I look at all of those and actually look at them quite fondly. I think they've come of age. Is there?
Bizarrely, for me, it might be totally wrong, but like the Z3, for years I've always thought that looks hideous. But then like the last 2 years I've been like, I think that looks wicked, to be honest. That little thing. Like,
I'm with you on that.
Don't know what that's all about.
And you can pick those up for like £200.
Well, some of them are
Might have
4,
to go and
aren't
get
they?
some.
Some of them are 6.
Yeah. The clown shoe, as it's always been called, which is the Z3 M.
Oh yeah.
Well, the M Coupe.
Yeah. I mean, what the values of those have just gone stupid. Haven't they?
Yeah. But I still view that as bloody ugly. I mean, it's an awesome car to drive, without doubt. But no thanks.
Yeah.
It's not for me.
We need a buzzer for this.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. I mean, E36 M3, like that's a car which, people liked at the time, but I just love it now. I look at that car and I was always like, oh, shame they didn't flare the arches like they did on the 46 or on the E30. But actually, when I look at an E36 now, I just think that's wicked. Like just as an M3, they didn't need to flare the arches. Just the mods they did, and a base E36 I just really like.
Yeah. I remember my boss getting one new, and the front wheel was so far forward. I've always liked them, actually. It's just right in the front corner, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good looking little car.
Nice cars.
I don't think that's ever gone bad for me.
Joe?
What cars have gone wrong?
Well, yeah. What do you reckon? The car when you first
really
saw, you were
gothic?
like, absolutely not.
I was just sat here trying to think about it and struggling. I'm sure there is. I quite like new stuff when it comes out. I don't know. I'm not much of a hater. I think I need to learn how to hate things better. Yeah, I'll keep thinking.
Yeah.
Come on, Matt. You must have a few.
Honestly, like generally, if I hated it then, I'd probably hate it now.
Still
Fiat Multipla, that's a personal fave.
That's ever going to grow on anybody.
Is that ever going to turn into a good-looking car?
Yeah, no. But a car that was popular at the time, and I love even more now, is a Mark 1 TT. So for me, that's like the original iPod. It's just that 2000 Millennium car that is a design classic, and they're for nothing. You can pick one up, £1,500 will get you probably quite a decent Mark 1 TT. All right, it's going to be a bit ropey for that, but a good base car to do up.
They look better now, didn't they, than like the Mark IIs? It's funny how cars go through this natural ascendancy of being new. Then the older they get, the more shit they look, and then they kind of come out the other side. Everyone goes, "Wow, it's a modern classic."
I think when the TT came out, I thought that was like it felt like it was miles ahead of everything, and it was I don't know, it was like a proper sport. It was like a modern sports car, wasn't it? That had all those bits.
The dashboard, just everything about it.
Yeah, just
the only thing with the TT dashboard was the clocks didn't seem right. I remember test driving one, left-hand drive one, really early one, and when you sat there, the clocks didn't look right. They were like the wrong angle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Should we be looking out the window?
Maybe I'm just a short arse.
Yeah.
But I love the TT where the roof line, the window line, when you're sat in there, it does feel good.
It was the first kind of car that kind of had some nice kind of beautiful curves to it, when all other kind of cars of the genre were still quite square.
Yeah.
Just into the millennium and stuff. Yeah, that's
and people said it was terrible to drive, but I don't think that really matters now. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one car, just thinking to change subject slightly, Mark III Golf. Yeah, that was forever. That was, to me, was just an ugly car.
Yeah.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, I still wouldn't want one now, but that seemed to turn a corner of becoming a bit more loved.
When you see a clean Mark III, you're like, that's nice.
Do you know what? Bang on it. And back in the day, you used to kind of have Mark II Golf, and then someone would jump to a Mark IV, wouldn't they? They'd always skip out the Mark III from the VR6s and whatnot, wouldn't they? But even then, didn't they? That people used to put a front end on from was it a Passat or something?
Bora,
that's it. Yeah.
I saw a Mark IV the other day, and I thought, it looks a bit weird. Like the front headlights are these just sort of blobs on the front. And yet the Mark IV for years was the one to go for and looked great.
There was a time, wasn't there, when you could literally skip across town without touching the floor, because you could just run across the top of Mark IV Golf. So with that kind of plentiful. And they all had a brake light out as well. It was par for the course. Yeah, actually, I remember as well when the Mark III MX-5 came out, and thinking this thing is massive compared to like the dainty Mark 1 and Mark 2s. It was a real kind of step change because the Mark 2 really was a Mark 1 without the pop-up headlights.
Yeah.
And the Mark 3 was massive. And I remember thinking they've got that all wrong. I mean, if you put that car now next to like the latest MX-5s, that looks tiny. Same sort of thing, you know. It's just, time is kind to a lot of things. You just get used to it, didn't you?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it grows over time. So we could do with a call out for what do people think is, what do we call it? Ugliest Fuchs.
Ugliest Fuchs, yeah. What cars
start the debate?
Yes. So what cars started ugliest Fuchs, but you think's okay? And maybe we'll read some out the next episode. Although we always say that and always forget to do it, don't we? To be quite honest.
We'll try and make this the first time we actually do it. Then.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, we'll try that. So at the end of each episode, whether it's a panelist or an interviewee, we put these 10 questions to the guest. By the way, you should know this, obviously, as an avid listener of Road to Redline.
You clearly don't listen all the way to the end of any of our episodes.
He's only here for the appearance fee. But yeah, we ask 10 questions, the same questions that we ask everybody. Yeah. There's no wrong answer, but if you have to think about it, then it's not right. Okay, so straight off the cuff.
Right.
And
quick fire.
Yeah, and this will really kind of give a synopsis
are these
of
like
you.
Quiz type questions then, or just opinion based?
It's opinion based, so it's from the fields.
Right,
from the fields, and it will give a synopsis of kind of you and your kind of Porsche persuasion.
Okay.
Go on.
It looks nervous. You ready?
It does.
I am actually.
Yeah. First question, air or water?
Air.
Your favourite Porsche model?
964.
Is there a favourite Porsche colour? Green.
Forest green.
Favourite interior colour?
Black, though I would never have it with forest green.
That wasn't one of the normal questions, so I just thought, I wondered if he was just going
We thought you were trying to sell your car.
No.
Who is your ultimate Porsche icon?
Wow, who is my ultimate Porsche icon?
Yeah. Richie Payne.
Oh, wow, yeah. Good old Richie. So if I have to think about it, that's too long. I'd probably like Will Smith, Bad Boys. You know, that to me. That,
quality.
I like that.
Great
Yeah,
answer. I've never said that yet. Awesome.
Favourite track?
Favourite track?
Well,
I'm going to say Santa Pod, just because I'm a drag racing slag.
Of course, yeah.
Great shout again.
To Fuchs or not to Fuchs?
To Fuchs, but with a split rim.
Stock or hot rod?
Hot rod.
Of course. Narrow or wide body?
Wide body.
We used to have a different thing for that, didn't we? What was it, athletic or bubble butt? But that's got wiped out. Cars and coffee or track day?
Oh, that's a tough call. I like them both. I'm going to say cars and coffee.
Okay. And lastly, do you backseat or do you not backseat?
I have no idea what that means.
Keep them in or take them out.
Yeah.
Oh, well, keep them in because I've got kids and I like the fact that you can put little people and big people in them. So, yeah.
Cool.
Quality, yeah, like awesome. We've not had some of those answers in there before. I think that, as we say, paints a really good picture of Matt, who you are and your story. We're really grateful to you for sharing it on Road to Redline.
Oh, no. Yeah, cheers for having me on.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for coming.
Cheers.
Packer.